Welcome to What's Possible, ABM Expert Panel Series, where we bring our experts to talk to you about the latest trends and technology in the facility services space. I'm Alex Freidin, Vice President for Corporate Strategy at ABM, and excited to be here on our first series to talk about Integrated Facility Services, or IFS. This model is growing tremendously. It is about $100 billion today in the US, UK, and Ireland, and anticipated to grow in double digits over the next 5 years. Moreover, the broader facility services space in these three countries is going to be over $1 trillion in the next 5 years. And it's projected to grow and outpace single service and multi-service models as clients look for more integrated and performance-based solutions for their new environments. And the broader IFS market is growing with all these new technologically advanced environments, modernization efforts, and a drive for energy efficiency and sustainability. And today, we have a treat for you. We have two of my esteemed colleagues who are going to talk about what's happening in the market, what their clients are saying, and bringing you some of the latest insights. So today, we have Eugenio Burnier, who oversees ABM Performance Solutions, and Ashley Bradarich, our Client Relationship Director. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
So Eugenio, let's start with you first. I opened up a little bit on what IFS is. Expand on that.
Integrated facility services in general across the market is really where clients are looking to outsource business to service providers like ABM to put all services under one contract. And I think the benefits that we're seeing from clients is that they're not managing vendors, they're really just allowing us to do our job, which is manage a facility. You know, the model that we really talk about is we want our clients to focus on their core business, which is core to them, so we can focus on our core business, which is helping them with their core business, but managing our facilities.
Ashley, IFS isn't a new concept, and it's quite common in all three countries, but moreover in the United Kingdom and Ireland. It's growing there, but it's trending more in the United States. So talk a bit more about what you're seeing.
I'm seeing the trend in the United States happen because there's more education happening about IFS. Back in 2020, when things were starting to change and shift and the workplace was changing, and then we had to get people back into the office, all of a sudden there was this expansion toward workplace experience and making sure that we're having spaces that people are excited to go to work. So as we're educating clients on facility services and facility management, we're able to drive that workplace experience to get people back into the office. And IFS in general, I'll use an analogy. Right? So think of you're at home with your family and it's pizza night. And you've said, honey, did you remember to pick up the sauce on the way home? Okay, Scotty was going to want to do all the toppings tonight. He said he wants to get better at cooking, but he's got this big science project, so he's stuck in his room and he can't get to it. I asked Sarah to prepare the dough last night. So all of a sudden you've got to reformat what you're doing to build your pizza for pizza night. Or you could just call the pizza place down the street, put in your order, and they will have a piping hot, delicious pizza in 20 minutes at your door, right? That's outsourcing. I could do it all myself. I could have my teams in their different areas, whether they have expertise or they're trying to learn, or I could call someone that already has the tools, the resources, the people, the experts in making that pizza, and have them bring it to me. So it's just about that experience. What are you looking for?
And letting the experts help do it for you.
Correct.
And focus on your core operations.
That's right.
Eugenio, what are you seeing as some of the trends?
The big thing for us is that our clients are able to do this, and to Ashley's point around the fact that it's an easier way for our clients to have their facilities operate correctly, and there's also cost savings associated with it, right? So by outsourcing, to your point, to experts like us, we can do things more efficiently. But I think the biggest thing is we never compromise service, right? So actually we're seeing increased performance in the facilities as well.
So you talked about letting the experts do it, financial pressures. I'm also thinking about breaking down silos and providing an integrated model to a client. It seems like a lot for a vendor to tackle. So what do clients expect out of this from a company like ABM? Eugenio?
Yeah, sure. So the way ABM is helping our clients tackle the issues that you see is really what we call ABM Performance Solutions, which is our integrated facility services offering. So APS is our offering that we go to market with. And the way I talk about the differentiation for APS for us is really in 4 buckets, right? So if you think about self-performance, that is a huge core to ABM, where we self-perform sometimes upwards of like 90% of the work, right? So we actually get to control that work ourselves around the health and safety of our employees and the facility, but also a lot of the things that we do from a service delivery perspective. The second one really is technology, right? So technology is really core to us. We deploy what we call the APS tech stack on a lot of these contracts, where we're actually enabling technology to make us more efficient and to give our client transparency around the services that we provide. The next one is really around account governance, right? So we're very close to our clients. I talked a little bit about the benefits of IFS in terms of having that one invoice, this one contract. It's also one ABM leader, right? So that account governance starts with that ABM leader. So we never have surprises with our clients. And then the last one is we talk about APS as not just a service obligation, but the life of the facility. So we also have our ABM Technical Solutions group, which has a pretty major construction arm. So we help our clients also with their capital needs, right? So the operations and the capital kind of is the life of the facility.
Ashley, you're a client relationship director here at ABM. What are clients expecting from ABM in this integrated model?
Well, adding on to what he just said, again, that education, right? They don't know that this is possible, and so they're used to showing up to work a certain way. Facilities is hard. You go into work and you're expecting the day to go one way, it never does. There's always a fire to put out.
What?
And so they're used to calling their different vendors for different things. Things have been traditionally separated. So now we're tying all of that together and we're just extending the facility's arm. We are the partner that comes in so they know who to call, no matter what the service is or what has happened in the day. They've got that single point of contact, as Eugenio said, that can manage that on their behalf. So we're the eyes and ears out there at the site so that we can be reporting back. And then not only from a people perspective, but as he touched on, technology. Everything that we're doing out there, instead of having fragmented reports or meetings with your vendors, you've got one single pane of glass, one reporting tool where you can see everything that's going on in your facilities, and we manage that for you.
We're going to talk about technology in a bit. I want to go back to some of the trends and why we're seeing IFS growing. I know more than 80% of clients are saying budgetary pressures on their facilities are some of the top concerns that they have. Wage pressures, inflationary pressures, labor market challenges to get this technical expertise. Eugenio, when I paint that picture for you, why is that helping drive where IFS is going, all these different challenges in the facility space?
You know, the three things that I see in kind of the why the trend is going this way is, you know, cost, right? So we'll talk a little bit about cost. Talent is a big one for us, and then performance of your facilities, right? So when it comes from a cost perspective, we're seeing a lot of savings by going to what we call a first generation outsource, where clients are today managing in-house labor and then a vendor management system, and then looking at a company like us where we can do a little bit more efficiently by having the breadth of ABM behind it, right? The second thing really is around the talent, right? The fact that we have the number of employees that we have across the country, it allows us to kind of, you know, expand and contrast across a lot of the market. So that's become a big thing for us because skilled labor is a gap today. The way that we're developing talent within ABM allows us to flex that with new contracts. And kind of, you know, the last one really is on performance, right? The expectation is not that we perform the same level as it was before, is that we're actually getting the facility in a better condition. I always talk about the fact that if you think about a facility, it gets older every day. So it's actually more difficult every day to maintain the same level. But the expectation is that we're not compromising performance by having cost savings, right? And I think that's the big one that we're doing. You know, our clients are not looking for us to just provide facility services. That's not what they're looking for us to do. They're looking for us to kind of actually help them with their business goals. I think of one client of ours, and after we won the contract, what our client said to me is that, you didn't come here and talked about the services. You talked about how you were going to help me achieve my business needs, right? And I think that was a big thing for us. And that was really through electrification, not anything to do with service.
So I know in integrated facility services models, standardization and robust scoping is really important in that. So Ashley, expand on that and how you frame those priorities for our clients.
We are experts at these services and we have playbooks and standards that we expect of our people, but we've got to assimilate into the client's culture. Mm-hmm. What is their culture like? How are we going to tailor this for their needs? And we'll take that baseline, right, the foundation of the home, as I say, right, and we'll build up from there. based on, how do you want your layout? What kind of finishes do you want? That's our people, that's our technology.
So when I think about a facility, take a manufacturing plant, 75-story commercial office building, I'm just thinking about the myriad of services that need to be done in those types of facilities. Can one IFS model, really serve all of these unique facilities? Maybe Eugenio, why don't you start there?
Sure. So the answer is no. There's no one size fit all. It's not like you're buying a box from ABM that kind of manages all your facility needs. One thing that we do as part of our kind of APS process is we actually have a very custom solutioning phase, right? So we have a customer solutioning phase where we actually custom solution all the services required in a facility. To your point, a commercial office space versus a semiconductor space, very different needs and very different services that we have to provide. Where I think we thrive is complexity. So complex environments we thrive. 24/7 operations. You think about, airports, you think about manufacturing spaces, semiconductor, life sciences, you name it. These are 24/7 operations, critical environments where we can make a real big impact. That's the big thing, and that's why we put so much onus on it, because of the fact that we self-perform, is that we want to stand up self-performance capabilities on all lines of services as we go through the solution process.
So Ashley, when you're walking through some of these sites with your clients, what are you looking for? When you look up and look down to help develop these tailored solutions, how do you approach it?
It's the simple things, such as, is the space clean? Is the temperature comfortable? But honestly, it comes down to the people too. Are people saying hello in the hallway, right? What's the culture of that organization? Can you see the teams working together? So there's a lot that you look for in those sites. It just depends on, is it a critical environment? Is it an airport, right? What is the space that we're looking at? And then let's send the right people in to take note of, the mechanical systems, right? Those hard services or the soft services. And just to add on to what Eugenio was saying earlier, when it comes to budget, that's a big driver for clients. The buzzword is we need to do more with less. I talk a lot about our people because that's one big differentiator from ABM is we are self-performing the majority of our work, but also we are really trying to customize our solution for the client site, and that does mean the people, right? Not only the way that the people interact, but also their expertise. And when we're talking about doing more with less, we as an outsource partner can provide those right people with the right talent and expertise, but we can also change it if it requires changing, right? Because we've got thousands of clients in the area, in the country, or maybe we just need to relocate that staff if something can be optimized. Or, for instance, can we use automation? Can we use software or hardware to help things run more smoothly? So one client, for example, has an automated lawnmower. So out front, they've got the automated lawnmower, and not only is it fun and popular and people are excited about it, but it helps us use those resources somewhere else, maybe in a more high critical area.
So two words are coming to my mind from both of you: expertise and flexibility is part of that importance of solutioning these right. So you already just started jumping into, now we're doing the work, so let's jump into the work. How are these services actually delivered? How do you manage this? Again, that example of this manufacturing plant or 75-story office building. How do you do this, Eugenio?
Yes, I think the way we start this, I think it's important is the way we start this. We talked about the solutioning process, which is pretty robust to make sure that we're setting up the contract for success. But then we go through what we call the mobilization process as a transition. So as we transition this, typically it's 60 to 90 days, where we actually set up the account for success, right? And I always talk about that mobilization and operations are two very different things, and that's why we have two separate teams. So we have a mobilization team that then hands it over to our operations team. Our operations team, of course, is involved throughout the whole process. So that's really important for the way we set these accounts for success. A couple things that Ashley talked about is around the customer experience. That's becoming such a big thing, and I wanted to make sure we highlighted it because that is something that wasn't part of facilities many years ago. So now there's our teams are now there helping our clients. That touch is really, really important, which is something that's expected now in these contracts as we kind of go through. So how do we tackle these things? I think one thing that I talk about, and I go back to self-performance, I apologize, I'm going to say it a lot because this is core to us. I talk about, and I work in the metric systems, like the 3-meter radius. I'll convert it to 10-foot radius, but it's a 10-foot radius, right? So we expect all of our employees to kind of own that 10-foot radius around them.
You're multinational.
I know.
Yeah.
So that 10-foot radius, it's really important because if you are on the engineering side, you are expected to own that 10-foot radius around it. I'm not suggesting that person needs to fix a problem that's outside of their scope, but they need to call it in and they have to make sure it gets addressed, right? So that gives us that truly integrated model where all of our team members are responsible for the spaces.
Great. So Ashley, expanding on that, I'm thinking of you just won this contract, multiple geographies, multiple types of facilities for a particular client. Maybe provide another example of how you had to develop this seamless transition and what worked and what didn't work.
Well, it starts with planning, communication. That probably takes another 3, but then execution. So it starts in the sales process. We have a long series of meetings where we really need to understand what the client's end goal is. And we're developing a solution, as Eugenio touched on, to get there. And then it really is a partnership, right? We have the mobilization expertise, but we work in partnership with the client to understand their spaces, collect the data, and have this healthy exchange. So that might be regular recurring meetings. It might be looking at the data and what are we finding, and then executing on those results. When clients look to do this, especially if it's multi-site or multi-region, even multi-country, it can seem like a really big undertaking. It can be intimidating if you haven't done it before, and that's why you lean on us. So what we're gonna do is take one bite of the elephant at a time, right? So we'll come in, we'll learn your spaces. Maybe you're already outsourcing to a number of different providers, but your goal was to consolidate. We don't need to take that all over on day one, right? That would be intimidating for you and for us. But we can understand the space, learn what those vendors are doing, and over time, take that into more of the self-performance model, which is going to give us more control over the deliverable and also save costs.
Great. So we're going to continue this journey. We've talked to our clients about the why IFS is important to them. We developed this unique, tailored solution to their operations. We've been doing the seamless transition. So now we're doing the work. How do we ensure the standards are being met across these sites, or maybe even developing new standards for this?
I think you've heard from both of us talk about consistency. Consistency is really important. So we've actually developed what we call the APS service standards, right? And we actually hold all of our contracts accountable to the service standards, whether it's a commercial real estate facility, whether it's a manufacturing plant or an airport. The service standards are the service standards. Now it will flex with the type of services we provide, but that's what we want to see, and that's what our clients want to see, right? I think about one of our clients where we've really expanded with them throughout geography bounds, right? So across the US, into Canada, into UK and Ireland, their expectation is that every site is being the same performance, right? So every time somebody who's from the client side is actually traveling through these sites, they want to see the same consistency. And actually with this client, we even manage their entire EV infrastructure, right? So we actually manage the EV OS, and so they see everything the same way across all sites, right? But it takes hard work, right? It takes hard work to your point, planning, communication, and making sure that we are setting that up for success. And then the other thing is I talked about the APS service standards. We hold our account directors responsible for those, right? So that is a big one for us. With our clients, I talked about governance, right? And transparency, it's really important. But one thing that we do up front is we talk to our clients about, you know, what's that governance model going to look like? What are the KPIs that we are going to be held accountable to? And it's co-developed by us and our clients, so that on a monthly basis, we're looking at each other and saying, are we meeting those KPIs? Are we doing the successful things that we talked about up front?
Ashley, what are some of the challenges that you've seen in ensuring that we're hitting those standards and establishing those standards?
I kind of go back to communication.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that the communication expectations are set, right? Understanding how the client wants to be
Right up front.
communicated to, and then ensuring that our team is trained on delivering on that communication.
Do you do any inspections, quarterly inspections and audits to make sure that it's running as expected?
Of course. So a lot of times we can start off by doing what we call a facility condition assessment.
Okay.
Let's just look at the equipment, see where our baseline is, right, and be able to report on that so that we can put plans in place to be more proactive on maintenance of that equipment versus reactive, especially in these critical spaces that we're serving. Nothing can go down. That is critical that those systems stay up. Whether those audits are monthly, quarterly, biannually, we're going to set that up in a cadence that is right by our client.
So Ashley, I'm going to stick with you here, and I want to jump to technology. So these facilities are changing so fast. Autonomous equipment, smart building systems. And I know we have distribution facilities here in the United States that are becoming completely robotized. I was just recently at an airport and saw autonomous floor scrubbers going through that airport. So given this, and I think this is just the start of what we will be seeing in these facilities, how is ABM tackling technology in IFS?
We have to stay at the forefront of it because it's fun, it's exciting,
Yeah.
and we want to have options for our clients and not just one thing. We want to have a basket of resources depending on what their need is because every site is so different. But I want to go back to, it starts with the people, right? And by ABM being a self-performance company, our people are very important, and you've got to have the people aspect working first. Because if that's not working, adding technology to it isn't going to help it. You've got to have the people and the process right first, and then add technology to amplify what we're doing. So we will get those processes and people in place, and then we'll see where can we streamline this? What tools do we have? And we'll look in that whole basket and be able to add the different technologies that work for the site.
Great. So Eugenio, how is ABM leveraging technology for APS in helping clients achieve their sustainability goals?
I think one thing that Ashley talked about is that we don't deploy technology for deploying technology. We really want the outcomes, right? So the outcomes is what drives what we want to do. And to Ashley's point, our people are so important, right? So you're not going to make these facilities run themselves through technology. The people are so important. But we talked about one of the challenges is talent right now, right? So finding that talent is really important. We lever technology to make our teams more efficient. That's what we do. It's not to displace our team, it's to make them more efficient and allow them to do more for our clients, right? So that's a really big one for us.
Good point.
But the way we're looking at technology is really around, and I talked a little bit about kind of our standard APS tech stack. You think about in a common facility, you would have deployed a CMMS system. We talked about assets, the facility condition assessment. We really look at assets as a very important thing, right? So what technology is doing for us with things like predictive maintenance, we'll probably talk a little bit more about that, is understanding the assets, understanding where the assets are in their life cycle as well, and understanding what we can do from an energy efficiency perspective. So we deployed what we call ABM Connect, which is that single pane of glass, where we have a lot of insights to what's happening in the facility. So with some of our tools, we've been able to actually have dramatic savings from an energy perspective. In one client, I think we saved them $180,000 last year in energy savings by doing really nothing from a capital perspective, by just adjusting things through the data that we were getting, right? But again, it required the people to go and make those implementations.
I've seen some statistics where clients are spending maybe 10%, upwards to a third of their operational costs just on their facilities, which is a chunk of change. So let's dive into predictive maintenance and go a little deeper into what it means, how it's done to extend the life cycle of these critical assets.
It's been an evolution, right? So I think about my career and the evolution was there, is that we really started with kind of a routine-based maintenance. So we would actually say, okay, every month we're going to go look at this piece of equipment. Then we moved into more of a proactive, where we were being smarter about how we maintain. And now we're in what we call predictive, right? And what predictive maintenance is, just to give you some context, is really focused on our mechanical, electrical system, critical systems of buildings that makes the buildings work. But we're basically tying in to the systems, typically through the building automation system, and we run analytics, right? So we're actually monitoring the systems 24/7. So something that the human eye couldn't do, right? So what happens is now that we're actually looking at every single point in the facility 24/7, we can predict what's going to happen, what could break, when you need to touch something. We're not only seeing, like I talked about, the energy piece, because sometimes we're seeing simultaneous heating and cooling, and we can fix that very quickly, where it would take a comfort issue or something like that to enable that. Now we're using technology. But also, if you think about the life cycle of equipment, the fact that now we're actually being very fast about operating equipment correctly, it actually expands the life of the equipment. So we're looking at a 25% gain on the life cycle of equipment. So there's just so many benefits to actually understanding what's happening with your equipment.
And some of these critical assets are millions of dollars, and to extend it out, it's pretty giant cost savings. So Ashley, Eugenio talked about ABM Connect in this single pane of glass. Can you also expand on ABM Connect and how we use it at ABM?
Yes. So picture you're the facility manager and you've just outsourced, right? You've got this new partner. You need to report to your stakeholders internally what this new outsource provider is doing. So this gives you that tool that you never need to go to your boss and say, I don't know what's going on. Everything is funneled in. So you can see what your facilities are doing, you can see your open tickets, and just it's your one resource to be able to communicate what's going on in your facility.
Single source of truth.
That's right.
I'm making an assumption here. This model isn't for everybody. It isn't for all types of companies or all type of facilities. What industries and environments get the best return on investment using an IFS model?
I don't know that it's necessarily an industry that can benefit from this, but what you're looking for at the end of the day. And multi-services within multiple facilities or one facility, like you said, it's not for everyone, it's not one size fits all, but what goals are you trying to accomplish, and let us help you get there.
Eugenio, what are you seeing?
I think the one thing is complexity. Complex facilities for us is a place we live and we can really thrive on. So I think that's really important. But to Ashley's point, it's not a one size fits all, right? The way we talk to our clients is we do them a service by talking to them about everything ABM does, which is APS. So if you think about the way I very quickly say what APS is, it's everything ABM does for a singular client under a singular contract led by a singular ABM leader, right? So, but that's not for everybody. My biggest thing is making sure our clients are aware of that so they can pick and choose from the things that we do.
So now let's jump into APS, ABM Performance Solutions. So we've talked a lot about integrated facility services. Let's go a little deeper. Why is APS a different model out there, and where is it best suited for our clients?
Yeah, so I think I talked a little bit about the four things, right? So I go back to self-performance, technology, account governance, and our life cycle planning for our clients. I think that's a big differentiator for us. I think a company like ABM with the scale that we have nationally is really important too, because we have that self-performance model in every geography, right? So I think that's where we really see differentiation, where a lot of our competitors are going and they're actually doing more of a kind of a management service where they're managing vendors like us sometimes. But I think that's the biggest thing we're seeing, is that the control that we have through our program is giving a lot of benefits to our clients.
And adding to that, it makes us nimble. That's what's great about self-performance, is it's our employees doing the work. We're able to directly make adjustments, right? So that ability to be nimble for our clients just expands upon the value that they're getting.
Both of you have touched on this word complexity, complex industries, specialized environments. What do you mean by complex?
What I would say is a complex environment are clients of ours that are running 24/7. Aviation, airports, right, 24/7 operations. You're looking at data centers, 24/7 operations. You're looking at a lot of our manufacturing distribution clients that also have that in the semiconductor space, in the life sciences space. Really, really important, right? So if you think about in a lot of spaces where it's regulated, right, and I think we have to meet those regulations, that's really important, and that's really big in the life sciences space.
And all of those services to sustain those 24/7 operations and continuity, it's got to be important.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about in the life sciences space, we get into things like glass cleaning, right? It's a service that we provide because of our expertise in that regulated market.
Ashley, so we started a contract for an IFS client. We're 1 year in. What is the client seeing at this point? And how are we operating with them and getting into that battle rhythm with them?
1 year in, I'm happy to say we're talking about what's next. What else can we do? What new sites are we opening? Can you help with the construction cleaning or the construction planning? Can you help with the moves? Just what's bigger, better, what's next, because we're the preferred partner, so you guys are going to help.
And what kind of governance structure is put in place with ABM and the client to help ensure that we're meeting those standards, we're meeting our KPIs, and exceeding their expectations?
Well, there's going to be a cadence of communication and meetings, right? It could be weekly touch points with the day-to-day contact, monthly meetings, or even quarterly business review, right? So we'll have those meetings to assess what's going on in the facility, and then it all comes down to that single point of contact, and a big reason why you choose to do an integrated facility services model with APS. How is that person going to deploy? They can see the whole facility holistically, they can talk to the client about future plans, and then go ahead and make those plans and execute them with the right teams.
And I think what we do is we really co-develop that governance structure, right? So we make sure that the right people are meeting in the right cadence, right? I get involved in a lot of cadence with our clients, more at a quarterly level, but we are all committed to those meetings. And I think that's really important because you want to talk about these things. And we talked a lot about technology. I think one big thing is that they see what we see in real time, right? So I think there's no surprises, but it's important for us to go over these things.
I want to expand on what our clients are seeing. So what are they seeing as the outcomes in the daily operations of IFS?
Semiconductors coming to mind, right? Again, these regulated spaces, it's highly critical that those machines keep running. And so not only are we trusted to run those facilities, I mean, if there is downtime with that equipment, it can cost millions or billions of dollars, right? So it's very important, the job that we do to maintain those spaces, but it ends up going beyond that. As we've got this down and we are good partners, I've got one semiconductor client that actually we are managing their training facility as well, which is training their clients on how to use that equipment, so then we can manage both the client and the client's clients.
Great. Eugenio, same question for you.
I'll use an example as well because I think it's important, and I have to give a shout out to our education team just because we do such amazing work with our education environment. I think one thing that I talked about earlier was around the fact that we're helping our clients with their core business, right? So we're not just managing their facilities. So if you think about what success looks like for a specific education client, is enrollment. We're helping them with enrollment, right? So I think that's the big thing, is that we're helping them not only to meet their student experience, but also getting into things like athletics, right? So we're actually helping our clients increase their enrollment on the education market.
Great. All right. We're getting to the last section of this series here in this expert panel series. We're calling it a little lightning round, so get ready. I have 3 questions for you, just looking for some quick answers from each of you. Eugenio, I'm going to start with you. The most surprising outcome of moving to IFS that you've seen so far in your experience?
Our clients are getting cost savings and increased performance, right? So I think that's the biggest thing. It's not one or the other, it's both.
Ashley?
The sense of relief.
Sense of relief.
You can see the deep breath that they finally get to take when they're outsourcing.
What's the next big thing for IFS?
There's so much. It's going through my brain. What's the next big thing? It's the talent. It's the expertise, right? ABM is really working on developing different areas of expertise, even with our recent acquisition with WGN Star, to make sure that we've got really high-performing people in these critical spaces.
Eugenio,
can I expand on that before I answer because I have a different answer.
So you get 2 lightning
But I think
rounds.
this is super important because talent is a big thing for us. We talk about self-performance. So things that we're doing to make sure that we have that talent for our clients are things like account director certification. So we're actually taking top talent, could be number 2s and number 3s on accounts, and having them go through a process which gives them a career path, right? But also gives us the robust way to go to new clients and say we have the talent, right? So a lot of things that are, because the self-performance is so important to us, we're putting in a lot of onus with our human resources team, our talent acquisition team, our learning and development team to make sure we have a robust kind of talent engine for our clients. Can I answer my question now?
You're allowed, yeah.
So I go back to technology. So I think technology is the next piece. I talked about ABM Connect. I talked about predictive maintenance. We do a lot of this for our clients, which I think it's future, right? So we're there. I think the next evolution of technology is now looking at not only building systems, but our client systems. And we've started this, right? So we started this with one of our airport clients where we're actually integrated with things like flight data, passenger data, baggage handling data, right? Which are systems that we typically don't look at. But now that we actually manage the entire facility, we can make good operational decisions around, hey, there's delays in a part of the airport. Let's repurpose some staff to that part of the airport because there's going to be more foot traffic through the bathrooms. There's going to be more things that we need to do. So I think that's the evolution, is finding those other insights through technology that can help us make operational decisions.
So final word here. What differentiates ABM from our competitors?
It's our people, so the talent piece, the self-performance piece. It's our attention to our clients. I think that's a big one, is that, I always talk about this, that at ABM, none of us sit behind a desk. We're all client facing. That's a really important thing. And that's part of our culture, right? So I think that's a really important one. And then I go back to is that I think we're looking into the future, right? Through technology. So I think we want to make sure that we are enabling technology to make our teams more successful.
Ashley, final word?
Customization.
Customization.
Yep, so we talked about it. Every client's different. We have a lot of tools available. So how are we going to solution this particular need in order to get the best result? Let's customize it.
Eugenio, Ashley, I want to thank you so much. You are the experts in this, and you've been sharing just how this model is growing and how it can provide so much value to these clients. And a few of the things that I've taken away from this conversation, one is managing the complexity and being able to develop nimble, flexible, bespoke solutions unique to those environments. I heard about cost savings, I heard about technology, I heard about self-performance, and I heard about differentiation from our APS offering. Our solution helps enable our clients to focus on their core operations while we can help manage and support their facilities. So thank you. And I want to thank everybody for watching our What's Possible Expert Panel Series. Please share this with your teams. And if you'd like to go deeper and talk to some of our experts like Eugenio and Ashley, visit us at www.abm.com. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.